Right, so let's head into some quadratic inequalities, and I say it's time to make it maths. Come on. Hey. So, we've got a few examples to go through here, and let's run through them. There are 5 examples that I've got ready. Ooh, let's make these pen sizes. This is a good start. Okay, so we got x squared plus 5x minus 6 is less than 0. Now, based on how you solved quadratic equations, how do you think? What do you think you're going to do for this one? Well, I mean, based on what we've been doing, we keep on going, well, let's make sure it's 0. Okay, it is 0 on the one side. And then, hey, it's a quadratic. And we very merrily go bracket, 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 bracket. But this time it's less than 0. Okay, let's take that way down. Okay, so we got x, and we've got our factorization down, right? Cool, so we know that this is probably looks like plus 6 minus 1, because 6 times minus 1 is minus 6. 6x minus x gives us 5x. Cool, so now that we got this, now we can come back, and I said finally because it feels like we've been in quadratic equations and inequalities, and yet we haven't touched inequalities. And we also started with those parabolas, and now we need those parabolas. Are you excited? Those parabolas, we need them. Cool, so I'm excited, as you can tell, right, that if we were to draw this parabola, I'm going to draw it here and say, okay, the parabola is a happy parabola because it's a positive x squared, and it's got 2 roots, so our roots would be minus 6 and 1, so there's our parabola, and it's got its 2 roots at negative 6 and at 1. Remember, all we're interested in is this x-axis. And now we're looking and saying, where is this parabola less than 0? So I don't think I can just about reach there. So less than 0 is saying, when is this below the x-axis? When is it less than 0? So it's all the bits there. So it's here. It's, if I just kind of color it in, then it's all of these bits here, because look here, it's above the x-axis, so over here it's less than 0, so we just need to describe that bit that I've highlighted there now to say x must be between negative 6 and 1, and what symbol is going to go in between here? Well, it's this one. That's a terrible version of it. It's kind of this less than, greater than, that type of sign. And it's strictly, x is strictly less than 1 because it says that this whole thing must be less than 0. It doesn't say less than or equal to. That we'll do in the next one. Okay, so that's our strategy. So let's rock on with example 2. What's the first thing we need to do to this equation before we factorize? Well, we always made sure that we had x squared minus 5x, and we always made sure that the one side of the equation was 0. So therefore we need to add 6 on both sides of our equation so that we've got a 0 on one side. Now we can start factorizing and using that magic. So I'm going to run through it. Here we go. And we've got x, and this time we've got minus 3 minus 2. Okay, greater than or equal to 0. Cool, so parabola time coming our way. We draw this over here, and we say, well, our parabola is a happy parabola, positive x squared. It's got 2 roots of 3 and 2. So we're going to draw our parabola rather roughly, as you can see, and go, okay, well, these 2 roots here, oopsie, should have drawn. In fact, I'm just going to quickly draw that in green. So this parabola here, we said that it's got 2 roots of 2 and 3. I think like if we solve that, it would be like x equals 2, x equals 3. And this time we're looking for when it's greater or equal to 0. So when is it above the x-axis? So again, if I highlight it and go, well, it's this part up here and it's this part up here. Now we just need to describe that mathematically. Do you have an idea of how you might describe that highlighted pink bit. I'd maybe go for, it needs to be less than 2, or less than or equal to 2, because look, it's the equal involved, so it could include the 2 over there. Or it needs to be greater than or equal to 3, because that describes all of those numbers. So if there's 3 and we're going this way, we can go, well, all of those numbers there mean that it's above the x-axis. Okay, so there's our solution. Okay, so example 3. X squared less than 2x. Quick strategy for this. Well, let's keep going with what we did before. We said, let's rearrange our equations. The one side 0. Then let's factorize x minus 2 less than 0. Then let's draw our parabola. So we know there's an axis, and we know that we've got a happy parabola that has 2 intercepts. Look, that intercept there would be 0, and this one would be 2. So happy with 0 and 2. We're looking when it's less than 0, so I'm going to highlight this bit in between. And yes, you do need to draw the parabola each time, even if it's quite scaffy like the one I've done. And we can go, oh, okay, well, we need to describe that, but x is between 0 and 2, not including either of those points. Okay, so I'm just kind of going through and skimming in. Pop a pause and a breathe if you need it. Okay, example 4. X squared minus 6x plus 9 greater than 0. So already got 0 on one side. So go ahead, factorize it, draw your parabola, and just write down what you observe in this one. This one put together is interesting because we went, okay, so cool, bracket, 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 greater than 0. X minus 3 minus 3. So it's almost like there's one root. Like x equals 3 is the only solution. So let's draw our quick parabola. Happy parabola. No, wait, not like that. What would the parabola look like? Well, it's just got the one root over there at 3. And we asked here now, when is this parabola greater than 0? Well, if I highlight it, I can highlight everything in this parabola except that 3, because that's on the x-axis and it needs to be greater than. So in this case, actually, x is basically any number, any real number. But x is not equal to 3. And there we go. You might see it written more mathematically. X is an element of R. X not equal to 3. But as long as you got the gist of what it is, it's anything except that number 3. Okay, the last one shouldn't come up too often. But let's just do it in case. We go for it and we're like, okay, cool. Let's factorize. And then when we start factorizing, 5 and 1, 1 and it doesn't seem to work, right? So we need to reach for our quadratic formula, x equals minus b plus or minus, all of this stuff. And then we'll get our 2 roots and we'll draw our parabola based on that. So this one's perhaps a little bit tricky, but it doesn't really come up that much. That you'll still have your 2 roots, but they're not going to be integers. So you'll have your 2 solutions like 1, 3 or 7, 2 or minus 4, 2. Whatever those 2 are just not going to be nice. They're not going to be integers. So they'll just be different types of numbers, but the logic still stays the same. You'll go above, but it doesn't come up that much. But just in case you can't factorize it, you can always use the quadratic formula. Okay, so I think it's time to make it maths. Okay, goodbye.